Welcome to the Tropical MBA Show, where we have helped thousands of listeners just like you build million-dollar lifestyle businesses. It's crazy to say we've been doing this since 2009. Today, I am joined by my co-host, as is per the usual, the boss man, Ian Schoen. How you doing today, Ian?
Better than putting on socks at the beach. It's a terrible feeling. I was just down there. Saw somebody trying to put their wet foot into a sock. I'm doing much better than that.
Your bar's at an all-time low. Today, we're talking to listeners and business owners about their challenges, their goals, and more. If you want to join us on the pod to talk business or beach apparel, head on over to tropicalmba.com.
It's in the name of the show, man. We can't not mention it.
So today we're here with Pavel, a listener and a DCer, and importantly for today's conversation, the founder of a SaaS business just 1 year ago, Ian. Pavel started a Wix plugin that is now doing $8,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And that figure continues to grow. He kind of stumbled upon this opportunity. So Wix is a website builder. It's like Squarespace or Shopify, and they're one of the biggest ones in the world. And so when you build a Wix site as a small business, you can go into their plugin directory, and that's where Pavel's business shows up. And a lot of listeners of this businesses show up. So we're going to dig into the unique opportunities, the complexities, and the challenges of running a business like this, and generally just talk shop with Pavel. So here at the top, I thought it would be interesting for us just to preview some of the things we're going to dig into the conversation. And so what are some of the things that jumped out to you about Pavel's business? Did I mention that this plugin specifically basically sucks in Google reviews and presents them on a Wix website for a small business owner? So if you own a hair salon or a local business or something like that, and you want those Google reviews to be presented on your website, Pavel's business does exactly that.
Main thing that jumped out to me, Dan, is 8K MRR in like a year with 1,000 customers. That's amazing. And he didn't do it by bragging about his business on Twitter either and getting customers there. He did it the real way, which is he built something that people needed. So I think it's exceptional to have basically what he's calling passive income, or something that he only works on for a couple hours a week, be 8K MRR in such a short time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of these one channel sort of platform dependent businesses. And one channel meaning, how do you get your distribution? Well, you go to these directories, right? And if your app shows up at the top, you're going to get distribution. It's a two-sided sword. I mean, Wix does so much for you, right? All the numbers Pavel's going to present are sucked right down from the system. Those 1,000 customers you talked about, right from Wix, so there's no marketing costs.
Yep.
And in the first year of running a business on Wix, they don't even charge like a commission fee. And honestly, once they do, that commission fee does start popping in after a year's time. It's lower than I see on most P&Ls. Like if you had to reproduce that distribution, and frankly, like the platform that your business rests on your own, it would cost way more than the commission. Now, the downside, of course, is you just never know when Wix is going to change their mind about something. So we've seen this over the years with FBA businesses, with all different kinds of businesses that are really dependent on an ecosystem. So I think I love this type of business because it's truly a lifestyle business. It's the kind of thing, man, this $8,000, at least for now, is coming every month. It's reliable, it's growing, but you always have that risk in the back of your mind. Like, well, what if Wix changes their mind? What do you do as an entrepreneur in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, Wix could change their mind. But what I also love about this business is he's not building apps for Shopify like everybody else. He's building apps for Wix. What is Wix even? When's the last time we even talked about Wix? Have we ever talked about Wix on this show? I don't think so. But it's it's a big platform, I guess, that a lot of people use. It's like
people love it,
eBay
man.
sellers. I love eBay sellers for the same reason. They're quiet and they're huge. All we ever get to hear about, though, is the Amazon sellers. So I love the fact that he's building for a platform that could be under-leveraged in terms of development. Pavel was able to go in here, again, serve a need, and then not have to fight with 3 million other Shopify developers because it's on Wix.
Mm-hmm. I think there's this interesting, like Robert Frost, two paths in the woods moment that happens with these platform-dependent businesses. And we're going to talk about some of these with Pavel, which is to scale or diversify. You can either go like the branded customer route, which is to say, I've got 1,000 customers now. I'm going to develop those customers and try to get my LTV and rebuy up, right? You hear this all the time with FBA sellers. They say, okay, now I'm selling a bunch of boxing gloves on Amazon. Now I'm going to build a brand around boxing gloves and sell boxing equipment and sell more to these folks. On the other hand, you kind of have this approach that you serve the platform better. So you say, well, I've learned how to sell boxing gloves. Now I'm going to sell this X type of product, and you scale that way. So I think it is two different directions here. Do you build more plugins, or do you build out the relationship with these 1,000 people and growing every month and try and sell them more and get them to rebuy more? I think there are two different mindsets, two different approaches.
Totally, Dan. I think about this a lot. Many businesses go bankrupt selling boxing gloves and then selling the ring and then the shoes and all this stuff. And before you know it, they have a bunch of inventory. And just turns out they made the best boxing gloves in the world and nobody else wants this other stuff. So they overinvested and then they kind of lost their customer base because everybody came there for this one thing and now they're completely diluted. So I think you bring up a good point there. Now, in Pavel's situation, I think because the business is so young, he does have the opportunity to maybe invest a little bit there to figure out like, are these customers that are willing to buy more from me? Or is it just, like you said, a platform play? So I wouldn't necessarily mortgage the farm. I think that's the old expression, right?
Bet the farm?
Bet the farm.
By the way, who's betting farms? Well, I guess things are really bad when you're down to the farm. It's like, you want this farm? Like, my money's gone, my shoes are gone, my jewelry's gone. I've just got the farm.
Maybe it's got a well on it, some animals. I don't
know. One of the things like I think is underrated in these situations when you have not a ton of clarity on the exact next step. One of the things Pavel really represents for me is personal financial rigor. And it's an underrated strategy to run as profitable as you possibly can and dunk that money into investments. Let Zuckerberg and these folks who are great at running businesses grow your money while you're figuring out that clear next move and running low-cost experiments before, like you said, you dunk a lot of reinvestment into the business and hurt its profitability, because sometimes these things are just a window of opportunity, and that opportunity for you is cash flow. So maximizing that with like really strong personal financial basics, I think is a really good strategy. So here we go. Is this the ultimate lifestyle business? How cool is it to build something leverage on a platform that just brings you customers on a platter profitably? We're going to dig into it, see which road Pavel will choose in today's episode. Could you let us know a little bit about your background, Pavel, and what brought you to this call?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you for the invite and the opportunity. My name is Pavel. I originally come from Czech Republic, actually, but I moved up here 8 years ago. I'm a software guy, so I started working as a software engineer. I started my company, which is called Beaver Codes. But the main reason I needed a public entity was because I started working remotely for a US company. It was really good. It was like amazing work. And I've been there for 3 years. And during those 3 years, I became more comfortable with the businessy stuff, like with taxes, employment, and stuff like that. And then I always had the itch, like I guess we all have on this podcast, to build our own thing and try how that feels. So I decided to join this accelerator, which led to a company that lasted 4 months. But at the same time, on the back burner, I had this Wix plugins that I built.
So what does Beaver Codes do, and why is it unique and special? And what is the challenge that you're facing right now?
Beaver Codes built extensions, like so add-ons to this kind of page builder. And the unique thing is that within 1 year, we got to 8,000 MRR US dollars. So that was pretty good. And then it's also very low maintenance. So it takes me maybe 20 minutes, 10 minutes a day. And that time is kind of decreasing over time because I automated a lot of the stuff that I needed to do.
That's sweet. You wrote that your biggest challenge is diversify to minimize platform risk, as well as working with only one plugin at the moment. So to get the big picture, you mentioned that Beaver Codes is doing about $200,000 in revenue a year. What is the revenue makeup? What are the other products?
So I would that that's mostly these plugins. And then there's some other startup stuff that I've done before where I still have a revenue share, but that one is maybe $500 from here monthly, 1,000 there. So those are really small stuff that doesn't seem to be taking off really.
Gotcha. And what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish from a money perspective, say in the next 12 to 24 months?
I kind of like the cash flow part of it. So I'm not looking to sell the company or anything like that, or like a big exit. I think one of my best business decisions in life was finding a good partner. So with my wife, we work real well together when it comes to many things, but finances as well. So then we feel secure in that way. Like we're working on paying off the mortgage, and then there's really not that much we need to save up for. So I kind of like the safety net that I have in this business.
And I'm assuming you don't have any employees for this business.
No.
You've got $8,000 of MRR on 20 minutes of support a day.
That's correct.
Okay, so this is a beautiful base for a lifestyle business.
Definitely.
And you're saying a lifestyle business that prioritizes your personal passions, your relationships, all that. So we got a fantastic setup here. So the goal has sort of been met. You want to keep it good and keep it going.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I said that the risk is kind of the platform risk. It's one plugin. And I'm thinking if somebody would come up with a better version of that plugin, it might stop working. So that's one of the challenges.
Let's dig in then to some of the concepts around that 8K MRR. You know, the price points. Could you lay out the price points for us? And do you know how long the customers stick around? So do you know your LTV?
I do not know the LTV. The price points, it starts at $7 a month. And the way how it's set up is that there's a 30-day, so free zero trial. And then
is that with credit card or without?
That's without credit card on that plugin. And the reason why it's without credit card is because when I was implementing it, Wix didn't support the other way unless you build your own payment processing, which I didn't want to do. And now I actually launched 2 more plugins that don't do nearly as well, but they do have the with credit card trials on them.
Gotcha. So we got a $7 tier.
Yeah.
It goes the whole way up to 30, right?
Yeah, I guess doubles. So it's roughly 14 and then 30.
Okay. How did you arrive at those price points? Is it based on the plugin ecosystem?
Yeah, that's how I started. I think I looked at competing plugins and then I did a little bit of experiments. Like I raised it a few times and didn't really affect the number of people that was upgrading. So that's how I stopped there.
Gotcha.
Pavel, can you give us an overview of what this plugin does?
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems kind of silly, but it's when you have a Google reviews on Google Business and you have same website on Wix for that same business, you might want to show those reviews on your home site as well. And that's exactly what this plugin does. It's just built kind of simple for user so that they just install it, type their name of their business, and their reviews come in and it shows up on the website.
Could you tell us what the different price tiers are right now so we can get an idea for what the offering is at these price tiers?
Yes. So I did have to get a little bit creative when I was coming up with the tiers because the base functionality is kind of what it is, the plugin. So the base plugin shows you the reviews, shows it on your website. The middle tier, I've added like priority support, which considering that there isn't many tickets really, is limited. And then on the enterprise tier, there's more like customizations, which I had few where people reach out and I want this text to be purple or whatever.
So if you have maybe like a local business per se, is it mostly local businesses?
Yeah, it's a lot of restaurants and like sort of car repair shops.
Got it. So their customers review their business on Google and then they want a way to showcase those reviews when somebody comes to their website. And then this is basically like a feed of some sorts that shows these reviews on their website.
Yeah, exactly.
When you say platform risk, it means that Wix could build this, or Wix could kick you off, or there could be other people that build the plugin. Are those like sort of the 3 areas of risk?
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest one for me at the moment is that somebody builds the same plugin, basically.
Mm-hmm. What percentage of your customers come from like a Wix ecosystem search engine?
I would say 90 to 100% comes from the marketplace, from the Wix search area. So if somebody search Google reviews, my plugin comes up and they just click on it and that's how they install it.
Gotcha. And what's the rev share that Wix takes?
So the first year, they don't take anything to kind of support new apps. And then after that, they take 20%.
Do you feel like you've reached the ceiling in terms of revenue here? And how would you judge that?
I don't think so. Like looking at the number of installs and upgrades that I have each month, it's still the same. And the churn is not high because I can see the monthly recurring revenue for monthly paying users because I do have a monthly and yearly plan. And that one still goes up. So it's kind of sticky. People don't switch often.
Gotcha. So like your churn is like net positive. You're continuing to grow, outpacing that churn ramp of death that we hear about in subscription businesses for the time being.
Yep, I think so.
That's excellent. Do you own the relationship with the clients? Do you have their email information?
I do have their email information, and I did try some email campaigns. Didn't work that well.
Gotcha. That's interesting because you have like close to 800 customers. Is that right?
Yeah. So right now it's like 1,050 paying customers. And then I think there's over 8,000 sites that have it installed and haven't removed it at this point.
So you're generating about $8 per customer per month on average.
Yeah. I guess this month's going to be a bit higher. Like majority of the revenue I've seen so far was from people who purchased the yearly subscription.
I see.
And that's what's now started to recur because this is like 14th month. So now it's going to be higher. I think it's going to be maybe 8,000 without like after the revenue split.
Interesting. Have you been able to track what your renewal rate is on those annuals? The percentage renewal rate?
I would say 70%. But then there was just only one full month when the yearly revenue recurred. So it's hard to judge really at this point.
Pretty good. Okay. We got some really nice fundamentals. Now, if we were to press you and say, well, if you had to go get it to like 12 or 13,000 in the next few months, what are the levers you can pull on to do so?
I think I could try to implement that credit card before trial flow.
Do you know what your conversion from trial to paid is?
Maybe 6 out of 30 upgrade per day.
6 divided by 30, 20%.
Yeah.
It certainly would be fascinating to see what the credit card trial looks like. That could juice your whole system because your back end's looking good.
Pavel, you mentioned a couple things at the top here, just gloating about how good your lifestyle is with you and your wife. What are some of the things that you're not willing to do to grow this business as we talk about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would like to do some sort of bots leaving reviews or bots leaving negative reviews to the opposition.
Okay. So anything unethical, perhaps?
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it.
Are you willing to work, let's just call it 10 or 20 hours a week?
Yes, I think within like some sort of shorter sprint period. Because I do tend to work 8 to 10 hours. Although this plugin doesn't take much time, I'm still trying to build new plugins and trying to address this diversification issue.
Well, one of the things we talk about is I've always thought that like mission, vision, values in a company are bullshit. You know, like it feels like an exercise. But sometimes in cases like this, it helps, which is sort of like, well, what's the principle behind what we're doing? Why do people value my plugin at $30 a month? And the core concept is that when there's a passionate vocal community around any product or service, that business is going to make a lot more money. And so they're willing to invest in that specifically, and you're getting a small portion of that value in exchange for the framework that you're putting on the website. But there's a much bigger value chain when you think about the mission that Beaver Codes is currently participating in, which is something like Beaver Codes helps build passionate customer bases around great products and services. So you write that down, you know, okay, I got a Wix plugin, you know, is one option. But the other option is we build passionate customer bases and vocal customer bases around great products and services. And now it's like, okay, we make $8,000 a month doing that. And our renewal rate's through the roof. So it's working. You know, what are those businesses that are using it, that are doing the best? What are they doing well that the rest of the 1,000 can learn from? Who are the 50 that are getting the most reviews? It's something you could see. Mm-hmm. You could reach out to them and say, hey, how do you guys get so many reviews? Like, what's working at your car wash? What's working at your tree trimming service? What I'd like to do is publish that to all the other clients and let them know so they can also participate in the mission, which is to get our customers sharing about their happiness around like the value we're delivering here. And these are the sorts of things like in a bootstrapped environment to find ways to get those higher price points. Because, acquiring a customer is very expensive. And you've found a moment in time where you've got 1,000 of them off of this platform.
And relatively inexpensively at 20%. Okay. That's not bad for a marketing cost. Yeah.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And so one thing we're going to want to do before we go on to new is the third priority. Well, if we can't sell more of what we're selling now, the more strategy is move to credit card trials. See if we can get more people opt in when they're excited. The better strategy, better in terms of the quality of the strategy, is like, can we participate more in this value chain? Are there things that fit your lifestyle that you could also do? I mean, the simple thing is you've got a bunch of people building websites, so you could sell leads to agencies at a very bare minimum as a way to monetize your ecosystem better. But it feels like something like generating reviews. Like you said at the top, you're like, well, I'm not willing to do the bots thing, which is kind of a fascinating comment because obviously people are paying for reviews. Well, could you do something that's in line with your brand that is more authentic, but that also fits your lifestyle? It might be interesting to explore that price point to see, if I've got 1,000 customers and the way it breaks down right now is like X% pay top tier, I bet the math looks interesting. Because like typically what it's going to look like is if the average order value is like, call it $11 a month, and that's distributed across 1,000 people, it's typically going to be a math challenge that, well, X percentage are going to be willing to pay 10X, X percentage are willing to pay 20X. And you can do that math and just determine like what the theoretical offer would be. At a very high level, if you have 1,000 customers building websites, you could in theory say, well, 2 of them would be willing to pay $25,000 for their next website. And that's like just a math. Of course, you don't probably want to build them a website, but it's just a sort of a framework for thinking about getting the most out of what you've done already versus building new startups. Like you could have a startup on your hands from one perspective, which is Beaver Codes is this company that creates passionate customers,
Yeah, I really like the pointer you just gave.
How often are you talking to your customers right now?
Nearly not at all.
Cool. But you have their email, so that's a big opportunity. Like Dan was saying, I mean, what other services do these people need? What other plugins do they use? That would be something interesting to ask them. I think that they might be considering buying another plugin from you, perhaps if they've already bought one.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So if I'm understanding right, you got the base, you've got the middle, and then you've got the enterprise. And the enterprise you described as like customizing the color of the font. Is there anything else that you get with enterprises that's worth noting?
No, I don't believe so.
How or do you make it so bad reviews don't show up on customer sites?
There's a filter people can set where they can choose how many stars are required for the review to show up.
Okay. And how much does that cost?
It's in the base.
Interesting.
Interesting. Have you considered not making that part of the base? Because my guess is that that may be the most expensive feature.
Chef's kiss.
That they're willing to pay for.
I love that idea, Ian, because it feels in line like, hey, if you want us to like our software to analyze people coming through, obviously the vulnerability is that your angry customers show up. Yep. So at the base case, you get to show your reviews, but we will help protect your brand if you have a proper exchange of value with us that helps us to grow our mission. That's an interesting way to get those tiers making a lot of sense.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good idea. That is the number one feature everybody asks for when they heard about what the plugin does.
And so if it's the number one feature that people are asking for, it sounds like you're undercharging for it. Because if I'm a business owner, essentially what I'm trying to do is like protect my reputation. So this, again, when Dan's talking about mission, vision, values, this is a way to protect your reputation. And so when I'm looking at the spend, $30 a month, $50 a month to protect my reputation, that's very inexpensive, right? Because like one of these bad reviews, I have to imagine, depending on your customer, your auto repair shop and your average order value is a couple $1,000s. A couple bad reviews could cost you thousands and thousands of dollars a year. So what are you willing to pay for that? Of course, you're willing to pay $7 a month for it. I might be willing to pay $100 a month for that to wipe those reviews off my site. The other thing that I wanted to ask you too, just about kind of this like enterprise level package, we'd thrown out some ideas about soliciting reviews. Another thing that I watch business owners do these days a lot is have to respond to the reviews that are in Google. And it has to be a pretty good response a lot of times. So it's like, hey, Pavel, you ripped me off. I can't believe it. You never showed up. You didn't call, like whatever it is. And then you see the business owner in there and they're like defending themselves. And the best ones, they come in and they're like, hey, John, according to our report here, our customer service agent did call you. You denied the service. And when you read those, you think like, oh man, this guy's in the wrong. And wow, this business owner, they really took initiative to like protect their brand. So is there something that you can do, again, this idea of the mission of the company to like protect the brand? Is there a way that you can go in there and maybe alert the company when they get a review of any kind, especially one that maybe they need to respond to?
Or, to keep it automated on that line, you could provide templates. Because one of the things about those responses is often they're like bad templates that perform poorly. So you'll see like on oil change companies, it's like always like, hi, I'm the district manager. Please call me, blah, blah, blah. Yep. It's like, that's a poor performing. And like you have market research or experience at minimum that suggests that here are the 5 templates of reviews. That could be like a cool marketing piece or a bonus as well.
There could be also even more automated. Like we could read the responses and then with some light AI integration, figure out if the response is okay or bad and then alert if it's bad.
That's interesting. That's sort of like higher level where you're building solutions that helps them manage their reviews sounds very appealing as well. You mentioned you have a Google integration. Is there any value in integrations beyond Google?
I guess there could be. I was at some point thinking about Yelp reviews and doing like a similar plugin for that. But then I ran into issues with their API, so I gave up.
Pavel, of your 1,000 customers, do you know the average number of reviews that those businesses have?
I would guesstimate that it's like less than 20, but more than 10.
Okay. So continue to push down this road of like getting them more reviews. I also wonder too, the companies that are just starting off or they don't have any reviews, how to get them their first reviews. That might be something that's valuable. I don't know if that necessarily means like a different plugin, but that could be a value prop to your current plugin, which is like download this plugin and here's the different packages. Maybe one of the packages is like get reviews. So solicit reviews. And like Dan was talking about like the templates before. These are some of the templates that you might send out to your customers, perhaps, or this is a way that you might reach out to your customers, perhaps. Generally speaking, if we're going with this mission, you can only essentially work with customers that have reviews on some level. So another way to expand your addressable market here is to create reviews for people.
Well, the reason that could be interesting, Ian, is that if I had to bet for most of these businesses, I would say probably their Google business listing is more valuable to them than their website itself.
Yeah.
And so the actual review content on that listing is of premium value to them. So it's almost like they're paying Google Review List for that basic vanity and ROI. And now Ian's pulling out like, well, really they want to prevent threat. So now they're willing to pay, like $30 a month for only 4 stars and above show. And now pressing down the value chain further is like, well, how do we get all these reviews in the first place? Or how do we go from 20 to 100? Are there ways vis-a-vis intelligent software solutions we can get there that are ethical and like brand aligned?
Yeah, I like that line of thinking. It did give me a few ideas during the talk, including reaching out. I think that was something I'm definitely going to do, is reaching out to the ones that have reviews and how they get them.
It's a good question too. Like when you kind of push this thing all the way to its logical end in terms of like, and also where it starts with people on Google. So it starts with like the way that they set up their business on Google. If they're a Wix customer, do they even know how to set their business up properly on Google?
Mm-hmm.
Are you optimized in the first place to like take reviews?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a photo of your business? Is it a nice listing? Does it link properly to your website? Like all these questions exist potentially for this market segment, if I understand Wix right. And it might start with the Google listing because that's essentially what you're listing from.
So an annual audit of the Google listing that could depart quite from software, but is something that could be an SOP that's executed by somebody. So, every year I get a Google listing audit and it costs $500. And now we're going from, we're doubling our annual contract value. This is one theoretical way to do it. So we're kind of talking about three things here. We're focused on what you're already doing, which is typically the strategy we start with businesses. We're talking about conversions, which is your CC trial. We're talking about more annual contract value, figuring out what it is and how to get more customers paying more every year, perhaps with the insurance feature being on the highest tier. So getting more value exchange for what they value the most. And then now we're kind of brainstorming about expansion revenue, which is outside of that MRR framework. And we're looking at, are we selling leads out to agencies? Are we doing audits? Are we doing review generation? What are the ways to do that? Now there's a question that you came to the call with, which is, well, what if we do something else? And you said something earlier in the call. You mentioned your company has risks associated with it, to other people taking a look at what you're doing and perhaps recreating it. How do you take a look at what people are doing? Are there Wix plugins out there that are charging a lot of money that are perhaps doing something poorly that you could do better? Is there a way to do that analysis?
Yeah, I think so. So I was, my third or fourth plugin that I'm working on right now came up from that sort of research when I looked at different plugins. So if there's like few plugins in that area, but they still have enough reviews, but bad reviews on the Wix plugins. So I identify some areas that actually building a plugin in. One thing I haven't done, which I think I should do, is kind of try to cross-sell, like show the other plugins in this Wix plugin somewhere, in that Google plugin, which I don't do really now.
Because it'd be super easy then to become a passionate user of your software and now have a suite of items. And for me, I would essentially start with an analysis of like, who's making money? And if you can determine that vis-a-vis price point and reviews, and you can make a guess as to the potential distribution of that product, essentially what you're doing is you're getting a sense of like the value in the marketplace that's true. It's true that companies like this are paying $150 a month or $100 a month or $50 a month for these sorts of problems to be solved. Is there a way even I can solve that problem for my current 1,000 customers? And now all of a sudden we're getting to 12, 14, 16, and we're starting to go up that way. So like embrace the opportunity to gather customers the way you have, because Wix has solved this problem for you. I'm a little bit less worried about the platform risk in the short term because it solves such an enormous problem for you. There's risk in any business. The risk in the majority of businesses that we talk to is the customer acquisition cost, that they simply cannot reliably create new customers. Well, now you have a portfolio of customers. You could sell all different sorts of solutions, but what you don't know is whether they're willing to pay enough in order to make it possible that you break it out into a standalone someday. I think that would be a way to create diversification long-term, where we're just figuring out what these 1,000 people are willing to pay. It might be the case that, hey, they just want a Wix plugin. They're never going to like migrate out of that. And it is what it is. But we've also seen like another form of diversification is like, because you're in such a unique window of being able to acquire like 30 trials a month right now with just one plugin, which is an incredible feat for a small business, you could just diversify your capital that you make from the business because you're running very efficient from an operation. So say in the next 2-year time frame, you're able to get out 3, 4, or 5 more plugins. You're able to double, triple your MRR. And now we're just diversifying our capital into investments, into real estate, paying off the mortgage, and say the risk that you're most worried about comes to fruition in 3 or 4 years, well, you've done really well for yourself by diversifying that capital. And so you can find your next opportunity at that point. It's a long way of saying overcorrecting for platform risk also has risk, like everything in business. If you found a window to gain more customers vis-a-vis this channel, but now we're going to look for greener waters, and in the meantime, we don't maximize what we could have produced from it.
Yeah, it's very good input.
Yeah, I'm really with Dan on this one about maximizing what you've already found. The fact that you have 1,000 customers and the average order value is so low, and just getting back to it, they're paying for a premium feature at the basic level. There's a possibility, I think, like overnight, you could double this business if you reposition your pricing with your existing customers. And you can test this, right? With like 50 or 100 customers. You could go to them and say like, hey, we're rolling out premium features. Some of the features that used to be basic features are now premium features. Okay, it's $30, $50 a month, whatever it is right now. Who's coming with me? And yeah, I mean, you could get yourself to the point where maybe 25, 35% of your customers drop off, but you could increase your revenue like 2 or 3x, depending on what you do with your pricing. You haven't done any experiments yet, right? You don't know how price sensitive these people are. You don't really know probably either what they value too. So when we're talking about diversification, I'm thinking like, man, you really might have a winner on your hands here. I think a bunch of people listening to the show are like, oh my gosh, I would love to have this business. And some of this, Pavel, might just be like, and you can tell me, but like you might just like identify. It's like, hey, I'm like a 0 to 1 guy. Like I love starting new things. I love spinning up these new apps or whatever. Like, yeah, now that I've got to like do a bunch of math and like figure out how to maximize customer value and stuff, that's not really my thing.
Everybody's got their hammer. Pavel's hammer is building product, right? Like finding something cool, building it. I've read his blog. He's building a lot of cool shit. My hammer, if you toss me the keys to the business right now, Pavel, I would email everybody and be like, look, here's what happened. There's 1,000 of you reading this email right now. I spoke to the 5 of you who are creating a literally 10x reviews as the rest of you. So what I'm going to do is there's going to be a phone call Thursday night. It's at 6 p.m. after you climb down from the tree and get out from under the car. And you're going to come to this phone call and I'm going to teach all you guys what these 5 companies are doing to literally get hundreds of reviews a year. And we're going to start to build a relationship with this clientele. And your curiosity could get sparked by those relationships to really know everybody else that's up in the tree and under the car and cutting hair and doing all this stuff and starting to get a sense for what they're passionate about. That could inform your standalone. That could inform your next product pivot. It could inform your $75 price tier or your partnership with an agency where now, you go to a DC meetup and you meet these other talented people for whom you have thousands of contact records with burning problems that you really understand because you've spoken with them. And so this could be, this sort of hammer that I would take is really biz dev, is just relationship building. It's like the most sacred thing in business. Understand how they're spending money on these things. Maybe start to bang your head against some of the more burning problems they have, like review generation, maybe even other small business problems that would spark your creativity.
Yeah, those are very good ideas.
We know several of them. We know developers don't like talking to customers. But when they talk to customers,
he's too charismatic not to do it.
They make a lot of money.
More talky, less buildy.
I'm just going to build my way out of this. Thank you very much. Been there.
There's nothing better than building your way out of it. There's a question about it. Oh, man. One of the things I'd like to point out, you talk about managing risk, is I think the way that you've expressed the way you manage money is something that's a little bit under talked about in entrepreneurship. Obviously, you're keeping your costs really low. You're concerned about the rev share that's coming up with Wix. You're talking about your partnership with your wife, and you're really having an eye on how you manage your money is, I think, one of the most important ways to mitigate risk in entrepreneurship. Because if you do face platform risk, someone with your track record with this product, with Automatic, the worst thing that can happen to your business is that it stops. And then we do it again in a year. We get the next great remote gig, a co-founder gig. We hack something up over a weekend. And so as long as you manage your personal money right, it really goes a long way to giving you freedom in your business. And that's something that Ian and I have always talked a lot about, like making sure that your lifestyle costs are in line and that you're managing your money well, because it's a way to mitigate risk, essentially. And to keep us living free is to not have personal money stress. So I like that you sort of started with that.
Yeah, that fully resonated with me. That's how I think I've been building my life in past 5 years. And that's what gave me even the option to feel comfortable to focus more on the business and do all that stuff.
And you could consider, if you're able to grow, meet your personal financial goals, bringing in somebody into the business often has this invigorating effect where you have a teammate. You know, and some people look at that as, I got to manage people. But let's be real. Having one developer in the office is not management. That's often fun if they're the right developer. And now you guys are brainstorming for 15 minutes in the morning every other day and talking about the cool new things that you guys are going to build. I mean, you get to share that passion and that experience with somebody else. And that could be an interesting option too, to grow passion and to make sure the business stays on track and is healthy while you're pursuing things outside of the office.
Yeah, that was going to be my suggestion too, Pavel. I mean, you're a very agreeable guy. I like it that there's not like a lot of pushback here. You know, in my personal life, I get a lot of pushback from my ideas. So it's good to be able to come on this show and not get a lot of pushback. But sometimes during these conversations, I think we can all agree on things. And then, you know, we wake up Monday or Tuesday and it's like, well, but I'm going to keep doing the thing I want to do, which is like pursuing these new apps, because that's what I'm really passionate about. So I think Dan's comment about like maybe bringing somebody in that wants to bring this from like 1 to 10, because you got it from 0 to 1, might be interesting. And again, yeah, to consider being able to afford that. How are we going to do it? Maybe we can increase our prices. Maybe you could use some of the money from some of the other apps. But I do think that you are starting to get to the point where it could make sense from both a fun perspective, also a productivity perspective, to potentially consider bringing somebody in to work on some of the things that you don't want to work on. Now, I'm not, of course, accusing you of that, but I'm guessing, because in my business, there's a bunch of things I don't want to do either, and we end up hiring for those.
Yep, that's a good idea. Like, the reason why I am agreeable and I'm not pushing back is because, like, I feel my field of expertise is not here.
Well, I'll comment on that.
Yeah.
This is so common, is that the people who say they aren't a good writer are actually a good writer. And the people who say they aren't a good marketer are actually a good marketer. And what I see is you saying, I'm not any good at this. And everything I see is that you're freaking good at it. So when you think about recruiting people, you want to find people who are curious and open-minded and fit that culture that you've built here. People that are passionate about building. And I think that you have built something that shows your expertise in doing this. And so it can be recreated, it can be sustained, and it can, you know, someone could definitely help you with it too.
I also think that people are going to bang down your door if you offer an opportunity to work with you on some of this stuff. You have product market fit, you have traction, you have customers, you have a good model. Like, people want to plug into this. Guarantee it. People would bang down your door for the opportunity to work with you on this.
Pavel, we appreciate you taking your time today to share what you've built with the rest of us. It's inspiring to look at other people's goals and plans and creativity. I think it helps us all to just relate to each other and get motivated on what we're doing.
Pavel, would you do us a favor and just check in with us in 3 months? Let us know how it's going and some of the changes that you made.
Yeah, sure. That sounds great.
Awesome, man. Would love to circle around and see how things are working out for you.
We appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your story.
I'm very thankful for the advice and this conversation too.
Cool.
Well, Dan, first things first here. I hadn't heard of Wix since 2017 when they did the Super Bowl commercial with Jason Statham and Gal Gadot. You know, that was the last time I ever heard about Wix. I think one other time before that, it was like my grandma was trying to make a website or something like that, and she brought it up. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
I think Wix is, I'm getting a Wix t-shirt. I think I'm going to go around town and start talking about Wix. I had no idea you can make this much money from a simple plugin on a Wix. It seems like a big opportunity.
Yeah. You know, when you talk to a startup person and they're like, there's 220 million people in the world that do this. If we could just capture point, blah, 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 you just know that nothing's going to happen. But the interesting thing when you look at these platforms is that you can see the live market. It's kind of like looking at the stock exchange, right? Like, this is how many customers they have. This is what they're paying. You can start to break down their budgets for different things, and you can get involved in that marketplace and they're less efficient. Like you're pointing out, you don't even know about Wix. I mean, there's tons of people that don't know about Wix, which means there's opportunities in these marketplaces potentially for entrepreneurs to come in and to tap into the existing cash flow. Guess what Wix customers have already done? Unlike the 220 million people, a percentage of which who knows might be a certain mindset or do something, people on Wix are paying for Wix. That is an established cash flow, and that is demonstrated market demand. And so I think it's a great strategy for founders to tap into as close as they can to these existing cash flows.
Yeah.
This is just one example of that.
And existing cash flow, and think about it this way, which is like you have the cool kids internet, and then you have the internet that people use, like normal everyday people. Normal everyday people use Wix.
Yeah. You're a man of the people with your Wix t-shirt.
Exactly. The cool kids are on Twitter talking about how much they're making with their Shopify apps. All right. Yep.
I'm at the cafe with a crypto hoodie. You're rocking in with a Wix hoodie, hanging out with the people. I was just thinking of that because I saw a guy at a cafe with like a Binance hoodie, and I'm like, I don't know. It's a statement. It just feels like a big statement.
My hoodie is going to say Wix on the front and then cash flow on the back.
That's right. Cash flow generating asset.
That's
what
right.
What you got for me, Binance? All right. Well, this is a badass business. And honestly, a lot of folks will look at something like this and they'll say, oh, hell no, I don't want to get involved in something that's platform dependent. I want to build a standalone. I want to build something that scales and all this kind of stuff. And hey, you know what scales is cash flow. And you kind of get on first base and you get some cash in the bank, you get some experience with a customer set, and you progress to more difficult business models. And I love this style of business where we're tapping right into an ecosystem and getting momentum early.
Yeah, and Dan, some of the bad things about building for a platform might be like you don't own your own customer, but in the case of Pavel, he actually does. Like he has that information.
And that can be your prospectus, right? I won't build for a platform where I don't get to own the customer relationship. And there are hacks on Amazon for that too, where you include things in the mailer and all that.
Sure.
But like the interesting question here is really, is there more value to that customer relationship, or is it essentially tapped out? Like, are you at the bottom end of the ecosystem where the most they're ever going to spend is on that Wix design, and then you're just forever going to be the plug-in person? Is there a greater opportunity there? I want to answer that question quicker. Once you get a decisive answer about the quality of the customer, then you can move on to perhaps building for the ecosystem. Or hey, doing whatever the heck you want, right? You can go enjoy side hustles, enjoy your life, stack some cash while the getting is good. I love it. All right, Ian. That's it. Become a Tropical MBA insider today at tropicalmba.com. It's 100% free. You'll get access to some of our best business building resources, templates on everything from quarterly plans to budgets. We even have monthly giveaways, and you'll get a free copy of our book outlining exactly how you can build a multi-million-dollar exit. All that plus a weekly email from yours truly. Join the fun over at tropicalmba.com.